Chandrila. I have with me our Vicar General, Father Gary Castle. And today we have a guest with us, Miss Angela Vivar. Angela is a college prep facilitator, curriculum developer, and workshop leader. And she spent the last 21 years serving Hispanic and underserved communities for students and families. And she previously served, until just recently, was serving as the director of Hispanic ministry at St. Francis Parish in Stillwater, Oklahoma, where she's still very active there as a volunteer. And she also serves on our team that's working with a process that we're calling the CONGAR study in the diocese here, which is basically a strategic planning process for Hispanic ministry. And so Angela is one of the team members on that as well. So welcome, and thanks for coming in today.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
So Angela, to start off today, maybe just tell us a little bit about your own faith journey and also how your faith informs what you're doing today.
Yeah. So my faith journey, wow. So I was born in Stillwater, Oklahoma. My parents are from Mexico. And so my mother has had a huge influence on me and on my faith life. She has just been that steady rock. Mm-hmm. And she taught me how to pray. I remember when I was a little kid, she had this little Catholic prayer book. And when you're an immigrant, you come with a few things. And she had brought this. It belonged to her mother. Mm-hmm. And she taught me an Ave Maria. And I remember when there were storms, because Oklahoma, we have storms, I memorized an Ave Maria, which is a Hail Mary. And so from there, I am a cradle Catholic, and I have needed my faith. I have loved my faith, and I have struggled with my faith, I think, just like anybody. So the faith journey has just been one of really, hopefully, getting to know God, the little, that I can of such a big, enormous, and good God. I have also wondered about my faith too. Mm-hmm. I think I mentioned before this that I tried to leave my faith once and the Lord pulled me right back. Mm-hmm. And sure. It's interesting, just real quick, I'll mention that actually happened through like a house haunting. My apartment was having all kinds of strange activity, and it was just a really terrible time, and nobody else could get rid of it. And so I had to call Father O'Brien. And it was gone. Wow. As soon as he left, it was gone. I had a beautiful encounter with the Lord, and I knew this might be right. If the Catholic Church and what it provides to me is able to get rid of this, and I think we have something here. Through my faith journey, something big that's been present is when the forces of evil try to come against you, you mm-hmm. recognize that evil actually exists. Mm-hmm. And so when you know that evil exists and that Jesus is the one who brings you out of that, then there really must be something here. And I want to bring as many people with me as possible, because there is nothing good on the other side. Right. And part of that faith journey also has just been this insatiable desire to bring people to Christ, because there's so much suffering in this world. It's already a mini hell on earth sometimes. So let's try to ameliorate that and help people on their journey, so that in the end, we can all just be together.
I think that a lot of Catholics grow up with a notion that you're not supposed to question anything about the faith. Mm-hmm. But how else are you going to learn? Yeah. So I used to have this conversation all the time in campus ministry, there are aspects of our life that are not integrated, not in any way, as we're growing up, not in a healthy emotional or psychological way, not in a family of origin kind of way, let alone not in a spiritual or faith-based way. And if we think we can't bring that to the Lord, messy and all broken up and everything, then it will never get resolved. Yeah. So instead, we should be thinking, now, wait a minute, he deals with all the sin of the whole world. There's nothing we could bring that he can't deal with. And the church is not some house of cards that if you poke at it, you're likely to bring some new problem that it's never encountered before, to the fore, that it's all going to come down. So, it's resilient, it's tough. So push and prod and probe, and that's how you resolve those things.
Absolutely. And I think part of that, I keep saying real quick, I'll share this, but just the thought came to mind. A huge part of my faith life was my journey with my dad. And that has shaped how I work with my community and in evangelization, because just growing up, I told you my mom was the one who taught me my faith. And she taught me to serve in the church, and you never leave the church dirty. If you see a book, you pick it up. If you're at an event with food, you help clean up. You don't leave until it's over. And that's the kind of woman she is. And my dad was also a huge part of that. And I think that people like me and people like us, for anyone that's listening, he embraces us like extra hard because he knows we need a father. And so my dad's story is one of a lot of struggle and a lot of pain that he did cause, but there's a story of redemption there. And so when people feel that they're so far gone, when people come to me in ministry or I see them and they're like, I don't deserve to go to church, I don't deserve to, receive the Holy Eucharist. Yeah, I don't think any of us deserve that, but we're given that. And so through my dad's story of reconciliation with the Lord in the last 2 years of his life, he had a horrible cancer that took his life. But I firmly believe that he's okay because of the process that he went through and what we went through in the last 2 years of his life. He went to confession for the first time, probably since he was a child. He reconciled himself with the Lord. And in the end, he completely turned his life around. He made amends. He apologized. Father O'Brien baptized him 3 days before he died on his deathbed. Right. And awesome. I know my dad is safe. So that drives my faith journey. And especially in working with Hispanic communities, sometimes people are very hard on themselves and they think that they don't deserve the Lord. I cannot be an extraordinary minister of EMHC, of Holy Communion, because I'm unworthy. And so that's why we can't find enough to do that. Nobody's worthy. Right. But he makes us worthy. And so my dad, in my heart and in my mind, pushes me every day, and that anybody can be saved. Even if it's 3 days before you die, you can be.
It's beautiful.
And, had he lived 40 more years, but not had that conversion, that would have been worse.
No.
And so for him, for your family, the thing that was the most important, he's got this deathly disease, is that he was okay with the Lord.
Yeah.
It would be great, let's have some more time with him, but the most important thing happened. Yeah.
It did.
Yeah, it is true, though, this natural humility that many people do have. Sometimes it's not a accurate humility. It's a shame-based humility more than an actual humility. True humility would tell us that, just as you're saying, nobody deserves to be anything. Nobody deserves to be baptized. Nobody deserves to be anything. But God loves us and desires that for us. And because of that, we can do things like volunteer in the church for this or for that. Even though our life is not perfect, our family's not perfect. Yeah.
Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that part of your story with us. How much do you think your kind of childhood journey informed the career path that you have gone down? Because when you look at, the things that you have been involved, in, has been very much about accompanying other people, particularly young, impressionable students and so forth. So how much of your own, again, struggle, the crosses of your own life informed your desire to kind of invest and pour into other people?
It's been everything. I think now, this is not the whole Catholic stereotype that people think we need to suffer, but through suffering, I learned a whole lot.
Yes, there is one of those. Yeah.
I think I learned the power of empathy and understanding different kinds of pain.
Yeah.
And understanding that maybe your journey isn't the same as mine, but maybe I felt what you felt, maybe I haven't. But I also know what it's like to not be heard. And I think that's why accompaniment is so important, because it's the process of hearing and listening to people. It's not the process of you, because a lot of this work, I do workshops, I do keynotes. I do want to keep keynoting, but it's not my favorite thing. My favorite thing is facilitation and advising and working with people, because truly people actually have the answer inside of them. You just have to let them know that you do hear the voice of God. Like, it is okay. Like, you are connected to him. Now, in the educational setting, I can't say that, but I can certainly facilitate an environment in which I empower them, help them know. So if they know that one person in their life listened to them and saw the good in them, my job, I feel like, is to like extract like the good and say, this is your good. Did you know that you offer all this good? Here, what are you going to do with it? And just to keep walking with them. And so I have students who are now 36 years old, because I started my journey actually at Will Rogers High School here in Tulsa, working with Hispanic kids in like prevention programs. I was 22 and they were like 18. And so my oldest kid might be 37 now. And so we are still friends on Facebook. We're still friends on Instagram. We send memes to each other every single day, because it's just a journey of walking with them. And that if there was someone missing in their life, if there was something missing in their life, maybe this love, this friendship, this mentorship could just help you understand that that's not the definition of who you are. And so working with marginalized, underserved populations, you just come to know that there's a lot of wounds there. There's a lot of hurt, and you just try to bring the truth to those. So it's influenced everything. And God is always right here with me. And, something funny, because it's one of those things that I'm like, I don't care anymore, because before I would protect my educational work and say, okay, I can't talk about the Lord that much, but I would. Okay. So like when students would come in, I had a caseload of like 60 that year, and they come in and we just talk about their life. And then all of a sudden I just say, is there any faith-based institution I can connect you to? Do you practice anything? Oh, Christian. Okay. Catholic. Really? Oh, me too. Just so you know. And that's it. And then they would start coming to me and talking about their relationship with the Lord. So even 2 weeks ago, I have a girl who I've been praying for like 10 years. And she came to the Lord. She finally had an encounter with the Lord. And
but even in the faith, even in the realm of faith, there's a professional, what we might call a professional way of talking with someone. So, we have a spiritual direction and what do we call the other one? Pastoral companion program in the diocese. And, one of the things that we are training them is how to talk with someone and how not to talk with someone. Because it's one thing if you start telling someone all your faith and how they're supposed to do what you do, and that's how you're not supposed to do it. But as you encounter them with where they are and ask them questions based on where they are, and then they can see, is this the route I'm wanting to go in, or does this make sense for my life, and so forth. So, I think there probably are areas of the education, realm, where any mention of faith at all would be verboten and you would get in trouble. But I bet most of it is not a strict, you can't mention it all, but you have to mention it in the proper, quote, professional kind of a way if you're going to do it,
Yeah. I think your experience with working with, again, young individuals, particularly marginalized individuals, is very apropos when you look at kind of the landscape of what we're dealing with today. Immigration obviously is a huge topic in society. And the church can hold two things at the same time. We can hold the truth that a nation has the right to protect its borders, but also we hold, on the other hand, anyone who is here, right, is a human being that really demands our respect in regards to their dignity. So you're kind of in your own family of origin, your mom, first generation in the U.S., you're from an immigrant line. What would you have to say, to Catholics in the pews and how to accompany the immigrant, how to accompany those who are feeling vulnerable right now, kind of in our country and in our society? What are ways in which we can come alongside of them to show them dignity and kind of lift their spirits?
I think that's key. Number one is showing them that dignity and understanding that we don't know what people's stories are, and that you don't know who is undocumented or not. And I don't ask questions, and what I end up hearing from people who don't belong to immigrant communities, some, not everybody at all, actually, but some people, that really hurts, and is that they say, well, you're fine. You're legal. It's them. And I'm like, them is your neighbor who you just talked about, who you buy tamales from.
Yeah.
You don't know that, do you? Them is the person who we don't know, who's sitting in the pews. And so before making those suppositions of who could be and who is not, I think you should know that the people that you love might be. And you may, and this is not to signal, this is all across the United States, but the people who cook your food, the people in restaurants, people in who keep our buildings clean, who build our buildings, who build our roads, who keep the infrastructure of the United States going, our fruits, our vegetables, our just everything. It's a part of that. And so I would just say, if in your eyes, this type of immigration is evil, then our job is still not to repay our perceived evil with evil. And so if we are using derogatory terms, if we have this sort of anger and bitterness in our heart that we can't let go of, then we're participating in sin. And so we are so mad at someone else's sin that we don't even look at our own sin. And don't even get me started on us looking at other people's sins and being so concerned about them that we don't look at our own. We don't look at the pornography problem in the United States. We don't look at the problems that, we encounter ourselves, and the things that we wrestle with, that we just want to pick out this thing. And so to maybe not fixate on that, and to understand that these are really good people. And if their crime is poverty, I think I saw a priest quote on that the other day, if your crime is poverty, then I guess that's what it is. So I know I get a little on that.
I find that a theme that I talk about a lot seems to be these days the media culture that we live in. And so there's so many issues, in our national cultural life, that it's really important for us to think carefully about how much of my opinion on XYZ comes from things that I'm reading online, or that I'm watching, or that I'm listening to. How much of it is coming from the catechism, or from the Bible, or from the teaching of the church? And to make sure that there's some kind of balance, or at least correlation there, because these industries that spend billions of dollars a year to advertise and to create programming that will get likes and advertisers and all those things, they're not doing that because it doesn't work. It works. And so if we allow our mind to be overly formed by things that are contrary to what we actually believe by faith, we need to be aware of that so that we can balance it out.
Yeah.
And to come to Christ with it in the end, right? Those are my thoughts and my feelings. But in the end, everything must come to Christ. If we can then, if he sifts that through and says, yeah, it's okay for you to call them names. Yeah, it's okay for you to feel this hatred, toward them, or to blame them for things. Then, hey, all good. But it doesn't sound like him. That doesn't sound like him. And so I don't know that that's what we should probably be doing if it doesn't sound like him.
So what's the meme where Jesus is preaching to the crowd and he says you have to love your neighbor, and they say,
not that.
Even Carl? Yes, even Carl.
That's how we'll win them over. I have never won a soul over by my meanness or criticizing their lifestyle or butchering them. It's just, that's never worked. And our job is to go find souls. So,
but I think all of us would agree, within the Catholic context, that our Latino brothers and sisters make up a huge part of our communities, not just here in the Diocese of Tulsa, but all across the United States. The number of individuals that, again, are contributing to the vibrancy of the church. So when you look at, again, just kind of this movement of a growing Latino population in the U.S. and our own diocese, what would you say are kind of the biggest things that community are needing, for their own continued faith development and maturation? So having worked in parish ministry in Stillwater for multiple years, and I know being deep and thick in that world, what are some of the greatest spiritual needs of the Latino community right now?
I think about this every day of my life, because if we don't address them, then it can mean that there's souls out there who may never be touched, and they need that. And who am I talking to? I'm preaching to the choir. And that's why we're here. We're here to talk about that. But a huge need, I think, is listening. And that's what CONGAR is going to do. What we're about to talk about more is this project that we are undergoing through the diocese at listening. Our people have feelings, they have opinions, they have thoughts. But what has dawned on me as I have prayed about this more and more is something that I fell victim to, and thinking that we don't have many rights because we're an immigrant community. And so we shouldn't ask for much. Maybe we can't put as much in the donation plate. So our standard should be just a little bit lower because we're not contributing as much. And so I lived in that. That when you ask the majority of Mexican, Central American, and South American immigrant populations who are here and maybe don't have wealth, and have not seen that they don't exercise all of their rights here in the United States because they're living in a way that's more, they're protecting themselves. And so how can I demand more for my church and say that we deserve more, we need more? I'm not going to do that. And so when we ask Hispanic people what their needs are, you're going to get a lot of like, oh, no, thank you so much. Like, thank you so much for all that you're doing. We're just grateful for what we have. But the truth is that there are people who are suffering spiritually. There are people whose needs are not being met. And it's a mindset that I also carried until I started praying more about it. And I was like, whoa, that is not at all in alignment with like what God thinks about us. And so, when I ask Hispanic people what they need, they'll tell me in an instant. When I say, hey, well, why don't you tell the priest about it? They're like, no. And they need to hear from me. It can't just be me all the time. Oh, Angela, you can speak for us. And I'm like, you need to speak. You need to say what you need. And so just training people. So not only do we need listening and for people to hear our opinions without being met with a type of resistance that, as a person who advocates and as a person who is the voice of my community, a lot of times I am met with some resistance sometimes. And it's a painful resistance because it just keeps happening. You hear the same things, that when you make a suggestion about, I think this would be good for our community. What if we started, a Spanish youth group? I hear the response often of like, well, that's modern day segregation, or that's reverse racism. And I'm like, no, let's actually talk to someone who lived in that, and they can explain to us what the definition of that is. That's actually just meeting people where they are. That's meeting a need that exists, because there is a need that exists in that with like youth communities and Spanish speaking kids and Hispanic kids. And so what we need is to be listened to and actually listened to instead of constantly being met with this resistance that kind of just shuts down the solution. I'm met with these answers sometimes where the solution is shut down. I'm like, but I have this solution, potential solution. And that's really hard. So if more listening could happen, I think that would be really big. And we need to empower ourselves. We need to use our voices also to speak up, because if we don't speak up, then a closed mouth never got fed.
Well, that leads right into the CONGAR project, right? So I think the name actually is related to the theologian CONGAR, is it not?
Is he French?
Yeah.
That's why I don't know
French
if I'm pronouncing it
theologian,
right when I say it.
CONGAR, yeah.
Is it? Okay.
And so it's out of the MAC, right? The Mexican American Cultural Center in San Antonio.
It's the institute in itself. And I believe Father Wayne Cavalier started the CONGAR Institute, and they've done a lot with the MAC.
That's it.
Yeah, more of a partnership. Yeah. And I think, again, this work is being born out of your pastoral letter, Bishop, Jesus is Lord, looking at the mission and vocation of the laity, and really making sure that the diocese, when we say the diocese, we would say our structures, so our parishes, our schools, our evangelization efforts are actually meeting the needs of our Latino brothers and sisters. And I think to your point, if there has been kind of a silence over the years, among that community of making demands of the church or letting the church at least know where they are spiritually, this really is a door that we're trying to open to be very intentional in listening, to the needs of what we believe is close to 50% of our Catholic population in Eastern Oklahoma. And so just to take this very specific time to engage with that community in a culturally appropriate way that hopefully will bring up, again, these needs. And so you're on the team, and so maybe kind of share with us kind of where the team is and then where the team's going and how all of us can help make this be a successful endeavor.
Yes. So I work with an amazing team of individuals who you can just tell that they were very prayerfully selected, and nobody wants to give up on this. Everybody is like, no, we're moving forward. Our people need to be heard. And it's very interesting because we also have a guy named Denny, and Denny works at St. Thomas More. And you would think that in the church that serves the most Hispanic people in, I don't know, the diocese or the state, I can't remember, but I think
it's the state.
In the state, thousands of Hispanic people, 7 masses on Sundays, 3 on Saturdays.
And then all the quinceañeras and baptisms and bodas, everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's somebody that could say, you know what? Well, I don't belong to a shared parish. I don't belong to a rural population, but he comes in and it's like, I'm all in with you all because I recognize that there's needs beyond where I'm serving and needs within his doors too. I'm sure that I wouldn't know because I don't attend a church, a parish like that. So anywho, so our job is basically to hear from Eastern Oklahoma Hispanic Catholics. I'd even be interested in hearing from some who are no longer Catholic and finding out why they are no longer Catholic. I think that's an important investigation area that we can look into. And so we want to do this through partnering with our parishes that serve Spanish speakers, and even from my understanding, those who don't, because you might have Spanish speakers in your area who could potentially use Spanish services, right?
Yeah, because you'll have a lot of bilingual Spanish speakers who may go to parishes that are not predominantly Hispanic, but they still have a strong sense of needs. Even within their own mixed community, they may have a strong sense of needs that are not being addressed.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we want to partner with parishes. We need parishes to open their doors to us. So if you happen to hear about CONGAR Institute Hispanic Pastoral Plan, that's us. And our job is this is really cool about CONGAR and Father Wayne, what he's been facilitating us through is that number one, you have to look at the honest truth. If we build a plan, if we go and investigate, and I encounter people who are like, no, everything's fine. Thank you so much. That's not the truth.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the truth, because I know my people. And I have talked to my people all across the United States and in my area and in Tulsa, and there are needs. And so our job is to get the truth out of them. And so we do that through accompaniment. We do that through intentional facilitation. So we want to go in to meet with your people for, I don't know, whatever works for you, wherever you say the most amount of Hispanic people can meet during this time and this day, I am ready to go. Yeah. And so we will work with your needs. We'll work with your population, and we're going to ask open-ended questions. We're going to find out, how are you doing? What's great about your parish? Where have you been served? And and also where are some needs that you have? And that's also, I don't want to, here's the thing, I'm afraid that pastors will be like, I don't want my people, what if there is something that we need to work on? And I know that, what if they tell on me? And it's not about telling on anybody. It's not that kind of process. It's about finding out where we can meet these souls and how we can serve them better. We hear back from them. We compile all of the data, and then we just present this to Bishop, to Father.
It's kind of a synodal, we've been using all of that. It's just a Spanish-speaking version of the synod is, that's one way of thinking of it, Well,
I think sometimes people are suspicious about pastoral planning because they think you go through all this work, you spend all these hours, and then it's just going to end up on a shelf somewhere. And I think I just want, again, those who are listening to this, out there, when they're considering participating, is to know that we do have a structure that's ready to receive that feedback, a structure that's looking at our diocese kind of globally, looking at it from a vicariate perspective, and really want to take the findings of this and, again, make the necessary adjustments in the different parts of our diocese where, again, needs are made known to us, and so that we can respond to those, because by responding to those, obviously, we hope to help in the continued faith formation of our Latino brothers and sisters, which again contributes to the overall vibrancy of the diocese. And so this is not a process that's just being done to make all of us feel better, but it really is going to inform the next 3 to 5 years of how we more intentionally respond to the Latino community in our diocese. So I'm very excited for this next stage of CONGAR to begin and to get the results.
Absolutely. Me too. And that's where strong facilitation is going to come in, and that we're also training some of our members of the group and other people who have facilitation skills. And facilitation, one of the words that I think of within that is fácil. My job is to make it fácil, easy for you to speak and to share. And so thank God, like that's, I don't do engineering, I don't do other fancy things, but I can facilitate. And so I know how to do that. And I just hope that can be a helpful part in this, and that we really get people to believe that their voice matters. That's one of the most important things in facilitating these groups. And that, did you know that your voice matters? Did you know that regardless of what status you have in this country, your status before the Lord is that you matter to him, and that he wants to hear from you. And you might actually make a difference in our diocese on things that we can work on things that we can do to serve our Hispanic population. And so your voice is very important in all of this, and just kind of breaking out of that jail that a lot of us live in, that we don't deserve much as an immigrant community, but also balancing that with like, we're not going to come in like, well, they haven't given us, all these things. No. There's a gentle balance of where the Holy Spirit can operate. And so it will also be a very prayerful process within and outside of our going to visiting parishes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
and do this. So, yeah.
Well, again, I think it's a great gift to our diocese that you're using your own gifts and talents, you're giving back, you're sowing. I think Bishop's commitment to that full incorporation of the Latino community into all aspects of our diocese is commendable. And I think this is just taking the next step and doing what is right and just of having a strong church in Eastern Oklahoma. So.
Thank you.